This is Discovering the Scriptures with Dr. Peter John Parisis. Currently, we are in Daniel chapter 2, verse 32. I'm going to read the verse first in the King James Version. Quote, "This image's head was of fine gold, his breast and his arms of silver, his belly and his thighs of brass." Unquote. Reading this in context, this verse is from the paragraph starting with Daniel chapter 2, verse 31, and going down and finishing through Daniel 2, verse 35. Reading from the King James Bible, quote, "Thou, O king, sawest, and behold, a great image. This great image, whose brightness was excellent, stood before thee, and the form thereof was terrible. This image's head was of fine gold, his breast and his arms of silver, his belly and his thighs of brass, his legs of iron, and his feet part of iron and part of clay. Thou sawest till that a stone was cut out without hands, which smote the image upon his feet that were of iron and clay, and brake them in pieces. Then was the iron, the clay, the brass, the silver, and the gold broken to pieces together, and became like the chaff of the summer threshing floors, and the wind carried them away, that no place was found for them. And the stone that smote the image became a great mountain, and filled the whole earth." Unquote. The Young's literal translation, quote, "This image, its head is of good gold, its breast and its arms of silver, its belly and its thighs of brass." Unquote. Now Daniel does use in this verse 4 different words that he uses several times in Aramaic in later verses: head, breast, belly, thighs. And in each verse they mean exactly what they are: the head, the breast, the belly, and the thighs. So we're not going to go into that one at all. But we are going to go into interlinear to parse this out. And remember, we're looking at the Aramaic. This image's head was of fine. Now, when we look at this Aramaic word for was of fine, we find out that the translation of it is not at all fine. It's good. So the Young's literal translation says good. The King James says fine. I'm going to tend, as a goldsmith and jeweler, to pretty well bank on that they do mean pure gold with no impurities, unless they're looking at gold that's coming straight out of the ground, but you can't use that. So I'm going to bet pretty much that they're looking at fine pure gold. Continue on. Fine gold, his breast and his arms of silver, his belly and his thighs of brass. Now, this is a complete description of the statue that King Nebuchadnezzar had seen in his dreams, in his vision, at night on his bed, and the same one that Daniel was given by God. So Daniel is giving us out exactly what is going on here. So let's go ahead and take a look at this and John Gill's commentary on the Bible. The reason I like John Gill is because I've been able to figure out that he has been using commentaries that are as old as the 900s after Christ. So his book collection is up to 800 years old. He is reading some in the Greek, some in the Latin, some in Hebrew, and he's referring to them. So I like to read his and see what he has to say and see if it can apply to us. Now, one thing I've noticed when I go to read old manuscripts is you have to be very careful because modern writers will paraphrase and change things, and they don't think anything of it. But you need to be very careful, because you do find yourselves having to weed through paraphrases to get to the real meat in the real writing. John Gill's commentary or exposition on the Bible is just one such that I have found has been paraphrased even in the 1800s and in the commentaries that are online. Fortunately, I do have the original editions that he put out in the 1700s. Reading John Gill's on Daniel 2:32. Quote, "This image head was of fine gold. The prophet begins with the superior part of this image and descends to the lower because of the order and condition of the monarchs it represents. This signifies the Babylonian monarch, as afterwards explained, called the head, being the first and chief of the monarchs, and compared to fine gold because of the glory, excellency, and duration of it. His breast and his arms of silver. Its two arms, including its hands, and its breast, to which they were joined, were of silver, a metal of less value than gold, designing the monarchs of the Medes and Persians, which are the two arms, and which centered in Cyrus, who was by his father a Persian, by his mother a Mede, and upon whom, after his uncle's death, the whole monarchy devoted. His belly and his thighs of brass, a baser metal still. This points at the Macedonian or Grecian monarchy, set up by Alexander, signified by the belly, for the intemperancy and luxury, as the two thighs denote his principal successors. The Seleucians, that's Selucidae, and Lagae, that's Lagidae, the Syrian and Egyptian kings, and these of brass because of the surrounding fame of them, as to Rome." Unquote. Now that ends John Gill's commentary on this particular verse. Now I want you to note that the speculation of who these kingdoms are that are not mentioned as we go along are purely speculatory. We do not mean to take the opportunity to do the same thing and get some sort of we know. No, we're looking at the verse. What does it say? What does it give us? So we're going to have to wait and see as we go along. What does this verse give us? Currently, as we're in this verse, it does not tell us who these nations were. Will they tell us as we go along? Only time will tell. But I would almost have to agree with the image's head of fine gold being Nebuchadnezzar. Beyond that, we don't have anything yet. So we're going to have to see as we go along. Is John Gill's commentary correct? I think sometimes we push it and we try to say certain things belong to certain people. But let's see. May God richly bless you as you go along studying the Word. Remember to pray and ask the Holy Spirit to give you wisdom and insight. And keep praying that this ministry will complete the task of putting the entire Bible verse by verse in audio form, parsing it out, and bringing the truth to you. God bless you.